I never thought the day would come when my own son would tell me to leave his house. But it happened, right there in the middle of the living room, in front of his wife and their little daughter. The same house I helped him buy. The same kitchen I cooked in when he was still learning how to boil eggs. The same living room where I used to rock him to sleep when he had nightmares. And all it took was one thing. I lost my job. I'm Marlene, 61 years old. A mother of two, well, one really. My daughter moved abroad years ago and calls every Sunday. But my son, Tyler, lived just 10 minutes away from me. When his wife, Dana, got pregnant with their daughter, I sold my own place and moved into their guest house so I could help them raise her. I didn't ask for rent. I didn't ask for food. I paid for groceries, cleaned up after the baby, and did their laundry while they were at work. And then, 2 months ago, I lost my job at the school where I worked as a front desk secretary for 28 years. Budget cuts. New faces. Younger ones. I didn't cry. I just went home and made dinner as usual. But when I told Tyler, everything changed. At first, he seemed quiet, just nodding and saying, "Oh wow, Mom, I'm really sorry." But then, a few days later, I noticed Dana getting cold toward me. She would take the baby out without telling me, and she started doing the laundry herself. Tyler stopped saying goodnight. Then came the talk. "Mom," he said, clearing his throat, "I think it's time we talk about you moving out." I blinked. "What?" "I mean, you're not working and Dana, and I think it's time we all had some space. You've been living here a while." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Tyler, I helped you buy this house." "Yeah, with the little bit you chipped in. But you've been living here rent-free for 3 years now." "Rent-free? Little bit?" I wanted to scream. But instead, I stood up, walked back to the guest house, packed my bags in silence, and left that night. No argument. No goodbye. Just my suitcase and a broken heart. But here's the thing. Tyler didn't know the full story. See, losing my job wasn't the worst thing that happened to me that year. It was what lit a match to a fire I'd kept hidden for a very long time. You see, I had a secret. One no one, not Tyler, not Dana, not even my daughter overseas, knew about. Years ago, after my husband died, I took the life insurance money and started investing. Little by little. Quietly. I never touched the money from my job, only lived on my salary, and let the investments grow. By the time Tyler kicked me out of that house, I had over $2.3 million sitting quietly in a mix of stocks, properties, and offshore savings. I could have bought myself a condo that day. I could have sent a lawyer to knock on his door and remind him that his house wouldn't exist without me. But I didn't. Instead, I booked a motel, paid for a month's stay in cash, and sat by the window every night, watching people come and go, wondering where my revenge would begin. It didn't take long. One morning, as I sipped motel coffee, my phone rang. It was Tyler. "Mom," he said, sounding embarrassed. "Hey, Dana's been asking if you could maybe babysit next weekend. She's got this conference." I said nothing. He kept going. "You don't have to stay or anything. Just, watch her for the afternoon. We'll pay you, of course." I chuckled. "I'm sorry," I said, smiling for the first time in days. "I've got plans." And that was true. See, after moving out, I had gone online and reconnected with an old friend, Claire. She was the only person who knew about my investments. She worked as a financial planner and helped me build everything from scratch. She also happened to own a chain of family centers, high-end daycare centers, private nanny services, and tutoring spots. That day, after Tyler's call, I met with Claire for lunch. We sat in her office, reviewing numbers, talking about life, and she looked at me and said, "Why don't you come work with me?" I blinked. "I just got fired." Claire smiled. "Exactly. You're free now. Let's build something better." So we did. That was the start of something new. Over the next month, I shadowed her operations. Learned the ins and outs of managing staff, running family programs, and planning enrichment activities. I wasn't just helping anymore. I was preparing to become a co-owner. All the while, I ignored Tyler's calls. He left messages, voicemails, even texts. I never replied. Then, 2 weeks later, I saw something that stopped me cold. I was walking through the parking lot of one of Claire's centers when I spotted Dana, holding hands with another man. A man who wasn't Tyler. They were laughing. Close. Intimate. I ducked behind a car and watched them walk into a nearby restaurant. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something in my gut told me things weren't as happy at home as Tyler wanted me to believe. That night, I called my daughter, Jessica. "You okay, Mom?" she asked. "You sound different." "I'm fine," I said. "Just planning something."
She paused.
"Do I need to fly back?" "No," I said. "Just be ready for something big." And then it happened. 3 days later, I got a knock on my motel door. When I opened it, Tyler was standing there, with dark circles under his eyes and a tight jaw. "Mom," he said, "I need your help. Please." I stepped aside slowly. "What's going on?" He came in, sat on the edge of the bed, and covered his face with his hands.
"It's Dana," he said.
"She left me." I sat down across from him. "With the baby?" He nodded, took the car, emptied the account. "She's gone, Mom." I stayed quiet. He looked up at me, desperate. "I'm sorry. About everything. I shouldn't have kicked you out. I didn't know." "Didn't know what, Tyler? That your mother isn't the broke old woman you thought she was? That the person you tossed out like garbage was the only one who truly had your back?" I wanted to tell him right there. I wanted to throw it all in his face. But I didn't. I simply said, "It's okay, Tyler. People make mistakes." And then I stood up, walked to my bag, and pulled out a set of real estate documents.
Deeds.
Business plans. Investment portfolios.
His jaw dropped.
"Mom, what is all this?" I smiled gently. "My life. The one you never bothered to ask about." And just like that, the tables turned. But that was only the beginning. Because the next day, I did something that shook Tyler's world even harder. Something he didn't see coming. Something that would make him realize this wasn't just about losing his wife. It was about losing everything. The next morning, I woke up early, dressed in my best navy blazer, and walked with calm confidence into the downtown branch of a real estate agency I'd once worked with silently, behind the scenes through Claire. The receptionist recognized me, gave a polite smile, and asked if I had an appointment. "I don't," I said, "but I'm ready to buy." She blinked.
"Buy?"
3 properties. In cash. That got their attention. Within 30 minutes, I was sitting with a senior broker, flipping through listings of upscale homes, rental units, and commercial spots. I already had a shortlist from the night before, so it didn't take long. We put in offers by noon, and 2 were accepted by evening. By the time Tyler was calling again that night, probably begging for a couch to sleep on, I had already closed on a luxury 2-bedroom condo downtown, signed off on a cozy bungalow in the suburbs, just 10 minutes from his place, ironically, and purchased a strip mall that housed one of Claire's new tutoring centers. Still, I ignored his calls. That was the low after the high, quiet victory. No shouting. No gloating. Just silent power. But the next high? Oh, it was coming. A week later, Claire and I threw a formal launch party for our new joint business, Golden Roots Family Services. We had secured funding, updated our licenses, expanded to 3 locations, and, best of all, we planned to offer employment to experienced women over 50 who had been pushed out of work. The mission? Kindness.
Dignity.
And most of all, empathy. The guest list was long. Financial partners, childcare experts, local news, and city council members were invited. I gave the opening speech, and people clapped and cheered. But guess who walked in through the back halfway through? Tyler. He looked around, clearly confused by the banners, the crowd, the champagne, and then he saw me, standing on a small platform in front of a mic, wearing pearls and heels, like a woman reborn. His jaw dropped. "Mom," he whispered to no one. I smiled like I didn't even know him. "Welcome," I said into the mic, "to the beginning of something truly beautiful." He didn't even clap, just stood there, frozen. After the speech, he caught me by the punch table. "Mom," he whispered, "what is all this? Why didn't you tell me you had money? That you were doing all this?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Because, Tyler, you didn't ask. And when I had nothing, you showed me who you really were." He lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry. I made a mistake." Yes, I said softly. You made several. Then he took a deep breath. I've been sleeping on a friend's couch. Dana isn't answering. I don't even know where my daughter is. Now any mother might have broken down, offered him help, pulled him into a hug. But I wasn't just any mother. I was a woman who had been pushed out of her home like trash. And I wasn't about to let him forget it. Still, I didn't scream. I didn't say anything cruel. Instead, I handed him a business card. It had my new title, co-founder and director, Golden Roots Family Services. And on the back, I had scribbled a note. We're hiring janitors. Apply through the website. Tyler's face turned pale. You're kidding. I smiled. I'm not. Then I walked away. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because a few days later, I got a call from Child Protective Services. Dana had left the baby, my granddaughter, with a neighbor she barely knew and disappeared. The woman eventually called the police after not hearing from her for 3 days. The baby was safe, but the authorities had no way to reach Tyler because Dana had deleted all his info from everything. I was the emergency contact they found in the system from years ago.
So they called me.
The caseworker asked, Would you be willing to take custody of your granddaughter, Mrs. Jameson? Without hesitation, I said, Yes, of course. And just like that, the story flipped again. I went to pick her up that evening. She was still so small, barely talking, but she recognized me the moment I walked through the door. Her little arms stretched out, and she smiled. Nana. I held her tight and cried. I took her home to my new condo, gave her a bath, made her favorite mashed potatoes and peas, and read her 3 stories before she fell asleep in a room with more toys than she'd ever had. Tyler called the next morning. I heard, he said. The neighbor called me. You have her? Yes, I replied. Can I see her? I paused, then said, That's not up to me anymore. Talk to the caseworker. He begged. I listened. Then I asked, Where were you when I needed help, Tyler? There was silence. I don't know, he finally said. Lost, I guess. Exactly, I said. So maybe now you'll understand what it feels like. He hung up after that. But I knew it wasn't over. Because later that week, I got a letter. Not a call. Not a message. A letter, written by hand and dropped in my mailbox. When I opened it, the words stopped me cold. Mom, if you don't help me, I'll go public. I'll tell everyone about your money, your investments, your secrets, and I'll fight you for custody of my daughter. He signed it with a smiley face. My hands trembled. I sat down in the kitchen, heart pounding. He didn't just cross a line. He jumped off the cliff. That was the moment I knew. I had to go further. Not just for me, but for my granddaughter. Because no one was going to take her away from me. Not even her own father. So, the next morning, I called a lawyer. And what we did next, it would make Tyler regret everything. The morning I met with the lawyer, the sky was cloudy. It felt like the weather knew something big was coming. I walked into her office, holding the handwritten letter from Tyler in my purse. My lawyer, Michelle, was a tall woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had helped Claire through a nasty business lawsuit years ago, and now she was about to help me through something far more personal. I placed the letter on her desk. She read it slowly, then looked up at me. He threatened you, she said. And worse, he threatened to use your granddaughter like a bargaining chip. I nodded. He's spiraling. I don't think he even realizes how far he's fallen. Michelle leaned back in her chair. We can hit back, Marlene. But I need to ask, are you ready to take this all the way? Because, once we start, we don't back down. I looked her dead in the eyes. He kicked me out when I needed him most. He treated me like a burden, like I was disposable. Now he's trying to take away the only innocent one in this whole mess. So yes, Michelle, I'm ready. She nodded once.
Good.
Then here's what we're going to do. For the next 2 hours, we made a plan. A serious one. It wasn't about getting revenge for the sake of pain. It was about protection. My granddaughter was already showing signs of stress. She cried more than usual, clung to me at bedtime, and asked, Where's Mommy? With sad eyes. I wasn't going to let her get pulled back into chaos. The first thing we did was file for emergency custody on the grounds that both parents had abandoned the child and that the grandmother had a stable home, financial security, and a documented caregiving history. Then, we started preparing the full custody suit. That was the calm before the storm. Because the next high? Oh, it came fast. Tyler showed up at my condo 3 days later. Not just knocking, banging. Loud, angry fists on my door. I didn't answer. I watched through the peephole as he shouted into the hallway, not caring if neighbors heard.
Mom.
I know you're in there. You can't keep her from me. You can't keep doing this. When I still didn't respond, he slid another note under the door. It read, "You want war?
Fine.
War it is." I kept the note, gave it to Michelle, and we added it to our evidence. Later that day, I got a call from the caseworker. "Ms. Jameson," she said, "your son just tried to file for emergency custody. Said you were mentally unstable, grieving your job loss, and unfit to care for a toddler." I almost dropped the phone. He said what? She sighed. He brought no proof. Just yelled a lot. Security had to escort him out. But I thought you should know. I thanked her, then hung up, and for the first time since this mess began, I let myself cry. Not because I was weak, but because the boy I raised, the baby I once rocked to sleep, was gone. But I wasn't going to crumble. Instead, I focused on my new life. Golden Roots was booming. Parents loved the warmth and professionalism of our centers. Older women we hired said they finally felt seen again. We started getting featured in local media. I was even invited to speak at a women's leadership conference in Chicago. And through it all, my granddaughter grew happier. She started calling me Mommy Nana, asked for bedtime stories every night, and followed me around the house like a little shadow. She was healing, but Tyler wasn't. One night, as I was tucking her in, I got a call from Claire. "Turn on the news," she said quickly. "Channel 7. I did, and my heart skipped. There on the screen was a mugshot of my son. Local man arrested in bar altercation. Witnesses claim he started a fight after being denied access to his daughter by his estranged mother. I sank into the couch. He had truly lost control. The story spread fast. Social media picked it up. People in the neighborhood whispered. I got stares at the grocery store, but not the bad kind.
Pity.
Empathy. Even silent applause. Still, I stayed silent. I didn't speak publicly. I didn't throw him under the bus. I didn't need to, because karma was already doing the heavy lifting. But then, just when I thought I had seen the worst, Michelle called me one morning with news that shook me harder than anything before. "Tyler's attorney just submitted a surprise motion," she said. "They're challenging your finances." "What do you mean?" "They're claiming the money you used to start your business came from illegal activity. They say you've been hiding money, evading taxes, and manipulating real estate records. And they've requested an investigation." My blood ran cold. "They a what?" Michelle sighed. "It's a last-ditch move. They're trying to ruin your reputation. If it sticks, it could impact your business and custody." The room spun. All those years of careful planning, all the sacrifices, the honesty, the transparency. And now, my own son was trying to destroy me from the inside out. "I'll clear my name," I whispered. "Whatever it takes." Michelle paused. "Good. Because we're going to court in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to prove I was who I said I was. 2 weeks to protect my granddaughter. 2 weeks to face my own son in court. And that courtroom? It would witness the fall of a man who once called me mom. But he was about to learn. You don't throw away the woman who built your world. Because when she rises again, she rises higher than ever. The courtroom was cold. Not just in temperature, but in feeling. It was one of those places where you could almost hear hearts breaking between the ticking of the wall clock and the shuffle of papers. I walked in wearing a charcoal gray suit and a soft blue blouse, calm, polished, collected. I held my granddaughter's tiny bracelet in my pocket, like a silent promise that I wasn't here just for myself. Tyler sat across the room with his lawyer, looking tired and angry. He wore a wrinkled suit and tapped his knee nonstop, eyes flicking everywhere except toward me. He wouldn't meet my gaze. Maybe he couldn't. The judge, a woman in her 50s with kind but sharp eyes, looked over her glasses and said, "Let's begin." First came Tyler's claims that I had secret funds, that I had been hiding money to manipulate the system, and that I used underhanded business tactics to get custody of my granddaughter. His lawyer spun a wild tale of hidden offshore accounts, criminal ties, and tax evasion. I sat quietly, letting them bury themselves in their own lies. Then it was our turn. Michelle stood tall, organized, and confident. "We have documents tracing every dollar," she said clearly. "My client has paid taxes in full every year, invested legally, and has never once received a warning, a fine, or even a notice from the IRS." She handed over folders.
Dozens of them.
Furthermore, Michelle continued, the funding used for her business was sourced directly from long-term investments made with life insurance money from her late husband, dating back almost 2 decades. All verified. All legal. The judge flipped through the papers slowly, occasionally nodding. But Michelle wasn't done. She held up the handwritten letter. This letter, entered into evidence, shows an attempt at emotional blackmail, as well as a threat to expose my client unless she gave up custody. Tyler's lawyer stood up. That was taken out of context. The judge held up a hand. "I've read it. Sit down." And then the moment came. Michelle turned to me. "Marlene, would you like to speak?" I stood slowly,
Took a breath.
then faced the court. "I didn't come here for revenge," I said. "I came here because I love my granddaughter, and I want her to grow up safe, happy, and stable. I never imagined I'd be standing across from my own son. But when someone shows you who they are, especially when you have a child depending on you, you have to listen." I looked at Tyler, then really looked. "You kicked me out when I had nothing. I never asked for payback. But then you tried to take the one thing that gave me joy. You used lies, threats, and now the law, just to punish me for being strong." Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I am not a perfect mother, but I am a good woman, and I have always tried to do right by my children. The courtroom went silent. Even Tyler looked down at the floor, lips trembling. The judge leaned back in her chair and closed the file. "Thank you, Mrs. Jameson. I'll return with my decision shortly." After what felt like hours, she returned. "In the matter of custody," she said firmly, "I find in favor of Marlene Jameson. Full custody is granted, effective immediately." I gasped. Tyler's lawyer dropped his pen. Tyler slumped forward, head in his hands. But the judge wasn't finished. "And regarding the financial allegations," she said, "this court finds no evidence of wrongdoing. The claims are unfounded, and any future attempts to file similar charges will be viewed as harassment." Then she looked at Tyler directly. "Sir, you are advised to seek counseling. This court hopes you reflect on your actions before pursuing any further legal conflict."
Bang.
Gavel down. It was over. I walked out of that courtroom into the sunlight, holding my granddaughter's hand. She skipped beside me, oblivious to the war that had just been fought in her name. We drove home in silence for a while. Then she looked up at me and asked, "Are we safe now?" I smiled softly and said, "Yes, baby. We are." But there was one last thing I had to do. The next week, I held a press conference for Golden Roots. Reporters gathered in our main center. I stood behind the podium and told our story, not just mine, but of all the women who had been pushed out, cast aside, underestimated. I was told I was too old, too poor, too broken, I said. But here we are, thriving, building, changing lives. Applause. Then I made the announcement that would seal everything. We're starting a new scholarship fund for mothers and grandmothers who are rebuilding their lives. And the first donation? I paused. $500,000 from me, in my husband's memory, and in honor of every woman who never gave up. The crowd gasped. Claire clapped so hard her hands turned red. And my granddaughter, my precious girl, ran up on stage, hugging my leg as the cameras clicked. That was the true revenge. Not money, not court papers, but rising. rising so high that the people who tried to bury you have to look up in awe. As for Tyler, he sent one last message a few weeks later. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I hope someday you can forgive me. I didn't reply. Not out of hate, but because I was finally at peace. Sometimes the best revenge is living a life so good, even your enemies wish they hadn't let you go.